What's up? My name is Ken Dumbo, the MC with the sauce. Don't forget to subscribe to J. Cool.
Good morning, and thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you for joining us. Let's just get right into this subject at hand. You have confirmed that the Zambian government, through the secretary, took. What are some of just the key conditions or concerns, that are being placed at the table? If you can, give us insight into that.
What I can confirm is that Mr. Patrick Kangwa has reached out, and there are currently no negotiations yet. There's an indication that they intend to reach out formally. The reaching out was to the extent that they intend to have a discussion or talks with the family, but those talks have not yet commenced. They are yet to commence upon the formal engagement from the secretary to the cabinet. I'm sure as they engage, they will be stating what exactly is in the offing and what exactly has to be done in this particular process. That's where we are. And just to correct you, the appeal before the Constitutional Court was for direct access. There were two applications that were put in. One application to get to the Supreme Court, and the application for direct access to the Constitutional Court. The reason for a direct access was for purposes of short-circuiting the process to get directly to the Constitutional Court, which is the apex court or the highest court here in South Africa. That way we could have saved time of going to the Supreme Court, and if we went to the Supreme Court, either party can appeal to the Constitutional Court. But there's provision in the law that where a matter is urgent and the exigencies of the matter require, the Constitutional Court can take up a matter directly from the High Court. We're exploring that route, but the Constitutional Court is of the view that we go to the Supreme Court first. You may have also noted that the time that application for direct access was pending, the High Court decided to adjourn sine die. The adjournment was conditional on whether the Constitutional Court was going to grant direct access or not. Now that the Constitutional Court has not granted direct access, we are going back to the High Court to argue that particular application for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal. That's what I thought I should clarify. Then as regards the niggling issues, why we're going to the Supreme Court. We're going to the Supreme Court because the family does not agree with the judgment of the High Court, to the extent that the judgment of the High Court seems to suggest that it is the law in Zambia that a former president, or indeed a president, is government trophy, and the family has absolutely no say in it. The family disagrees with the aspect of suggesting that the only thing that can happen is for the sheriff to hand over the body to the Republic of Zambia, even after the court held that there was an agreement, which we say there wasn't, because those were concessions on the part of the family, which were abrogated by the government. And having been abrogated, if the court was of the view that we get back to that purported agreement, then the court should not have gone to the extent of saying the sheriff hands over the body to the Zambian government and the Zambian government repatriate, because that would seem to shift what was contained in the concessions that the family had made, which were breached by the government, by the way. And in this particular case, we're saying, listen, we want the rights of the family to be asserted, because this particular judgment seems to suggest that the family has no role whatsoever to play. This is a government program. They can only participate to the extent that government permits them. And I'm hoping that in engaging the family and in stating what is in the offing on the part of the government, they'll be able to address some or most of those issues that are of concern, which we have raised in our appeal. Then if we're able to deal with them, I don't see no reason as to why we can't come up to an amicable agreement.
Mr. Zulu, with this insight that you've given us with what the family's standing is in terms of the court ruling and what the next step is. Does the coming in of government through Secretary to the Cabinet, Patrick Kangwa, mean that there could be, in a sense, a halt on the family's end to pursue this through the courts and hear what might come out from this particular negotiation with the government? Because it seems that is, again, a quicker resolution for the family and also the state.
Well, we can't determine as to whether it will be a quicker resolution or not, because the terms of the negotiations and what ought to be discussed, the extent of what the government is willing to give up in view of the judgment which was in their favor is not known. So we can't necessarily say what would necessarily come first in this regard. And mechanisms of possibly staying the proceedings for purposes of facilitating this may turn out to be a waste of time, depending on how parties in this matter are going to approach the thing. Because what has been broken is trust. And for trust to be rebuilt on the part of government, they would have to take certain steps that are satisfactory that that trust has been rebuilt. We had stated even before the first judgment that if we were to engage in talks, it would be best if the government could stop this weaponization of the media against the family, because the desires of the family only culminated into one: giving the former president a dignified send-off based on his wishes and the wishes of the family. That was the desire of the family, and that still remains the desire of the family. And as we stated in our statement, anything that is short of a dignified send-off will not be acceptable. Anything that seems to exclude the family from playing a major role, a pivotal role, and making decisions that are befitting the desires of the deceased and the family will certainly not be acceptable. But in this whole thing, we're saying, what are the rights of the family? What should ordinarily be the case in a situation such as Zambia? What is the law relating to that? Because the court went to another extent of stating that the law in Zambia is that a former president should be buried by the government. There's no such law in Zambia. And there was nothing that showed that the court went in depth to look at what the law is in Zambia. That's assuming that the law to be applied was the Zambian law. So we have all that and more. But the statement that we issued yesterday elaborates and talks much of the things that are concerns of the family and how best this matter can be resolved.
Now, Mr. Zulu, the one thing that I think both parties, this from the state side and even the Lungu side, we seem to hear of and is quite of an agreement, is giving him a dignified send-off. I think from both sides we hear this, that's what's befitting of him, a dignified send-off. Now, before we had seen, when there was a date set for him to be buried in South Africa, he had said what's happening now was to ensure that the Lungu story is told. With where we are now, nearly 3 months since he passed away, what are we saying now is the Lungu story here, Mr. Zulu?
See, perhaps you may not have paid attention as to what the issue in court was. And that is perhaps where the problem was. There were a lot of things were scattered over. But if we had a judgment that was going to deal in depth with the issues that were raised by the parties, the argument on the part of the government that merely because he was president of the Republic of Zambia, that justifies that he should be buried by the Zambian government. And they said that is a benefit to him. And we said, listen, you took away all the benefits of the former president. You could not possibly have vilified him in his lifetime and you want to celebrate him in his death, that a death which possibly, if he still had, if he was allowed to have access to medication, if you had not stopped him from traveling, possibly could have been alive. But who are we? We're not God, that we can determine that. But obviously, that is something that has to be interrogated even much further. We look at the benefits of a former president act and the argument by the state that upon his death, they revert to the person who has since died because they are seemingly not in active politics anymore. There are all those issues that the court may need to look at, may need to interpret in the right context. That is, if we're going to apply the Zambian law. But it is disagreed on the basis that no one becomes government trophy merely because they rendered their services to the country. It doesn't happen that way. It has to be the family. Everyone in Zambia knows the kind of relationship that the former president had with the government. Everybody knows how his family was victimized by the government. And everybody knows, even in his death, what was said by the former, not the former president, but the vice president. Everybody knows what was said by Jack Mwimbu. Everybody knows what the president has been saying in the last 2 or 3 days or so relating to President Lungu, even to the extent of suggesting that President Lungu had refused to hand over power when he willingly did so. And there was nothing whatsoever that suggested that he did not want to hand over power. So a dignified send-off is one that is free of mockery, that is free from suggestions that this person that you really have called a bad man, you're saying we want to give him the respect. How can you give him the respect when you've never respected him at all? You have seen most of the videos by President Edgar Chagwa Lungu himself, where he did allude to the fact that you can't have a person that is mistreating you through your lifetime, being there now seemingly to celebrate you upon your death. That's a mockery, and the family wouldn't want to subject him to that, just like he didn't want to be subjected to that. But with all that said and done, we're at a point where we should be able to say, listen, if these are the wishes of the family, and this is what the position of government is, how best can government give way to the desires of the family that suggests a dignified send-off to the family, not as defined by the government itself, but as defined by the family, and the government plays a supportive role in that regard. That would be a win-win situation.
Well, Mr. Zulu, I love that you've just said that, but I want us to hold on to that. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, while we continue speaking into this with family representative MAKEBI Zulu.
Thanks for tuning in to JQ News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest updates on tech, politics, and everything in between. Until next time, stay cool.